Hey guys, so editor Kaitlyn here. I just wanted to pop in really quick because I know if I don't give a disclaimer, my comments are going to be flooded with it, and maybe even if I do give a disclaimer, people are still going to complain a little. But this is not necessarily a super happy, upbeat, positive video. I have so many other really upbeat videos for you guys to watch. This is kind of just getting into the nitty gritty of what it's actually like moving abroad. And I know that most of my audience is Australian. A lot of you guys have lived in Australia, born and raised. And I know some people have lived overseas for a little while, so maybe this is an experience that at one point you could relate to. But this video isn't meant to just whinge and complain the entire time. I want to give you guys a really in-depth look into my life and what it's like actually moving overseas. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and kangaroos and koalas. There's a lot of negatives to it too. So I don't just want to share the positives. I want to give some negatives and give you guys a full real life glimpse into what it's like moving to Australia. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kaitlyn and I'm an American learning to live down under here in beautiful Sydney, Australia. And since moving to Australia over 9 months ago, I can't believe it's been 9 months already, but since moving over here, I have heard some really frustrating comments as an American immigrant over here in Australia. Some from Aussies in Australia, some from Americans back home. So today I'm sharing 8 of the most frustrating things that I am so tired of hearing as an American immigrant over here in Australia. So if you want to see what those 8 things are, grab a Bicky, grab a cuppa, and let's get right into the video. The first thing I am tired of hearing as an immigrant over here are green card jokes. So if you guys have watched this channel for a little while, you know that I came over to Australia on a prospective marriage visa, which is a type of partner visa over here. It's one of the family visa options. My partner is Australian, born and raised. And naturally with this, when you have a partner who you move over here for, if you're from a foreign country and your partner's Australian, somebody at some point is going to crack a green card joke. And typically these have been pretty lighthearted. Most people aren't saying them seriously, but with every joke there's that little grain of truth to it. And there are some people who I'd say weren't so friendly and weren't so polite about making green card jokes to me, to Mark. Obviously, we're in a legitimate relationship. It's clear as day to anybody who actually knows us, anybody who's seen us, anybody who's in our friends and family circle. But even some of these outlying friends, some people who are more acquaintances than they really are friends, have made a couple of these jokes, especially after a couple of drinks. And it's a little bit frustrating as the immigrant because I feel like I have to bite my tongue on this. Even though I can sit there and say, oh no, I moved over here for my partner, obviously. I didn't move over here because of Australia and the benefits and whatever stuff they want me to bite at and sort of take the bait on. At the end of the day, I moved over here because my partner's Australian, we're in a legitimate relationship, and at the end of the day, if we wanted to be together, we either had to have me move to Australia, have him move to the States, or we pick a random third location where we have absolutely no support system. And hearing people make green card jokes really undermines how difficult the actual moving process was. This was a very emotional process, you guys. In some ways, it was a little bit traumatic actually, especially for some people in my family. Words were said, things cannot be taken back by some people in my family when I told them I was moving over here. And at the end of the day, it absolutely shifted and changed a lot of the relationships in my life. There are some people who I've barely talked to since I moved over here. Some people who have had absolutely no concerns or questions or haven't bothered to reach out at all, who if I reach out to, I get these short, snippy answers. And there are some friendships that I've lost moving over here. A lot of the relationships with people in my family have changed since I moved over here as well. So obviously on the surface people aren't seeing all of these struggles that I've had to go through, that Mark has also had to go through, having a partner move halfway around the world. There's so much to moving over here, and I feel like when people make a lot of these green card jokes, it really undermines just how challenging and difficult and expensive and emotional this entire process was. So close friends and family never make these jokes. They know what the struggles are like. They know how difficult it's been for us. But having acquaintances make a couple of green card jokes here and there is really, really frustrating to hear, because there's so much to these stories. There's so much to moving abroad. And just hearing people make one-off green card jokes is really, really frustrating and can actually be a little bit hurtful. The second thing I am so tired of getting asked are questions about American politics. What do you think of Biden or Trump or even Obama? What do I think of the Roe versus Wade issue that's going on? What do I think of the Alex Jones verdict that just came out? So much is tied to American politics in the news over here in Australia. So Aussies do see America through a very politicized lens. They see information about school shootings and the Roe versus Wade and a couple of scandals over in America, most of which are tied to politics. So naturally, a lot of Aussies know what they see in Hollywood and what they see on the news when it comes to America. And when they get the chance to sit down with an American and talk to me and ask me questions, a lot of these questions go back to American politics. And honestly, even though I'm somebody who's slightly more apolitical than I was probably a few years ago, and not somebody who completely couldn't care less, but somebody who isn't as vocal and upset as I was a few years ago regarding the politics and the direction that America was taking, I still don't feel comfortable talking about my political opinions with a lot of people. In the States, your political identity is almost part of your identity as a whole, and coming over here to Australia, not having that tied to my identity is like a breath of fresh air. So I do not want to have to go back and talk about American politics regularly, especially now that I'm living here in Australia. I don't want to say it's something that I want to just ignore or bury my head in the sand and completely forget that it exists. Obviously, I have friends and family back home, and with some things that are going on in the political climate, I'm very concerned for some people who are friends of mine and family of mine over in the States. But it isn't something that I want to sit down and talk with a lot of Aussies about, especially because a lot of them come about it from a curious lens. They want to know what makes you tick, what the thought process is, whereas I want somebody who can emotionally connect. A lot of these political issues have a lot of emotional ties for Americans. This isn't something that we take lightly. This is something that is part of our lives. It's the fabric of being an American. And I think because politics isn't as huge over here in Australia, your political identity isn't tied to your overall identity over here. It's something a lot of Aussies just don't really understand from an American perspective. Asking political questions can actually be a very emotional experience for some Americans. So you're not necessarily asking lighthearted questions, and even though you're coming at it from a place of just genuine curiosity, it can be exhausting talking about American politics over and over and over again. Especially because there is this slight spirit of debate over here in Australia where somebody might play devil's advocate even if it's not necessarily something they believe, and then you end up getting emotionally invested in this debate because it's not something that's foreign to you, it's something that hits very close to home. And these could actually be issues you're talking about that directly affect friends or family members. So I'm so tired of getting asked questions about American politics living in Australia. Now, this one I've heard as a joke from a couple Americans back home, and that is, I should marry a hot Australian too. Or honestly, you could take the word Australian and insert it with any country that has a socialized healthcare system, a public healthcare system, whatever you want to call it. And really, that's kind of the joke. You don't have to be a hot Aussie or a hot English guy or a hot German guy or whatever. It also goes the same way. You could probably say the same thing, I should marry a hot Australian woman too. But typically, I've heard this joke a lot from my female friends over in the States, and it is so frustrating. This kind of ties into my first point. It really minimizes how difficult the choice is to move abroad for somebody. It really minimizes just how difficult a 2-year long distance relationship was for me and Mark because of COVID. It really trivializes a lot of the issues, the struggles that we went through as a couple in order just to get to this point, 2.5, almost 3 years into our relationship. Like, I met Mark on Tinder. I met Mark by chance, by an app algorithm. If I hadn't been on Tinder that day, maybe he wouldn't have come up in my options at all. Like, there are so many things that could have happened that would have led to me and Mark never meeting whatsoever. I would have never moved to Australia. This would have just been a fun 3-week holiday I had a few years ago, and I would have moved on with my life over in the States. There's so much to our story that even though friends understand it, it kind of trivializes the entire emotional roller coaster that Mark and I had to go through in order to get to this point. And when somebody says, oh, I should just marry a hot Australian too, yes, they're saying it from a joking point of view, but a lot of the people who are saying this do also know our story. So it is kind of insulting to hear friends and family crack these jokes after a while, because they've seen the struggles, they've seen the social media posts, they saw the date nights that Mark and I were posting on Friday night my time, Saturday morning his time, every week from half a world away. It was a struggle to really keep this relationship going at some points because there was no end in sight with COVID. And I've shared some of these struggles with friends and family, and I still hear comments like, oh, I should just marry a hot Australian too. It's very much a flippant throwaway, and it feels like it's just something I decided on. I'm going to come over here and just find a hot Australian guy and hook up with him. It wasn't like that with me and Mark at all, and it really, really is frustrating to hear friends and family trivialize your entire relationship into some one-off comment like that. This one I hear from Australians a little bit, more so on the internet than face-to-face. I don't know anybody who would actually say this to my face if that's what they thought, but if I make any sort of negative comment about Australia, I have an entire video about things that I actually really, really don't like about Australia. But if there's something I don't like about Australia and I vocalize that, especially on the internet because it's the internet, everybody has an opinion on here, then I get comments like, if you don't like it, then go home. If you don't like X, Y, and Z, then go home. Why is it that if I'm complaining about how expensive the housing market is, I should just go home? Like, I literally gave up my entire life back home in order to move here. So why would I go back to the States because there's a couple little things that I don't like that I would want to see changed that I'm not happy with? Like, sorry for anybody who wanted to see me go back to the States, but because I don't like the flies in Australia, I'm not going to say, well, you know what, forget it, just going to throw all of this away, I'm just going to move back to Philly because I can't stand flies. There's no logic, there's no reason to it, and I think some people just get very, very offended hearing somebody with a different accent who grew up in a different country insulting their homeland, and I could kind of see where they're coming from in that sense, but it still makes absolutely no logical sense where if you don't like something so minor and small, and honestly something that's just a little bit of an annoyance that even annoys a lot of Aussies, why would I then decide to up and move and go back to my old country? I feel like with comments like this, it's one of those issues where because it's mostly online that I'm hearing it, you don't want to engage with the trolls online. Obviously, there are some people in my comments who regularly post, and I know that they're trolls, and you just roll your eyes. And thanks for posting because it actually boosts my algorithm score, so that actually does me good, and you can vent as much as you want. Go for your life. But I know you don't engage with the trolls online, you just roll your eyes and you keep moving on. But it was something that I was hearing a lot, obviously with the things I hate about Australia video, but something that comes up now and again on a random video here and there is, if you don't like X, Y, and Z, then go back to America. And honestly, it's one of those things I have to roll my eyes over. It's not original. And it's something that I think because it's so not original and because a lot of other YouTubers hear this, I remember Ashley and I were talking about this as well because she got in a couple comments on TikTok about her Bagelgate scandal. It's more just an annoyance of seeing the same type of comment come up over and over and over again. There's no originality, there's no thought behind it, and obviously there's no logic. We're not going to up and move to a completely different country, uproot our lives, and go back to America just because I don't like the flies in Australia. Now, forgetting the fact that Mark and I just went on holiday to Hawaii, one of the things I would hear, particularly from friends and family back in the States, is, "You look like you're on vacation all the time." No, I'm not. I do have a job. I actually have this YouTube job as well, so it's essentially a part-time job for me. I have a full-time job where I work from home. Mark works regularly. Yes, once in a while I do get to go out in the truck with him, and we'll go and we'll take a couple pictures, and some of the drives are absolutely gorgeous out there. The scenery is beautiful, and obviously we're not confining ourselves to our house every single day of the week. We will go out, we'll hang out with friends, we'll go see family, we take little trips here and there, but typically I'm not on vacation. I know Australia is a huge vacation, like, bucket list destination for a lot of Americans, even though a lot of Americans never actually get over here. What I see is that because I moved to a place that's seen as an absolutely beautiful country that is amazing to go on for holidays, that obviously it must seem like I'm on vacation all the time because I'm not stuck in my old city in the States. And you know what? There are some people who see Philadelphia as a vacation place too, as a destination to visit when they're traveling around the US. I feel like just being in a different country, you sometimes get the feeling of a little bit of envy from friends and family, even if they are genuinely happy for you, even if it does come from a really good place. You will hear them say slightly snarky comments like, "Oh, it looks like you're on vacation all the time over there." No, believe me, I still work a job. I technically work 2 jobs. I still pay bills. I just pay taxes over here in Australia. I have to pay taxes over in the States too, or at least I have to file. I'm probably not going to breach the amount that I make over here in order to have to actually pay, but I do still have to file taxes over in the States. I still have my day-to-day life. I do laundry, I feed the pets, I clean up around our house. I live a normal, average life over here in Australia. I'm not living it up in some Airbnb in Bondi. I'm not living near the CBD where I'm going shopping at these huge mega stores every day. That's not my life. That's not me. I live a regular life over here in Australia. So even if I'm posting gorgeous pictures of sunsets when Mark and I are out on his truck, or if I'm posting pictures of the 2 of us going up for a ride, if I post pictures of me and my friend going to go get coffee somewhere, then that's just me living my life. That's not me being on holiday. We all know social media is so polished. It's the highlight reel of your life. It's picking the best moments, the moments that you seem happiest, the moments that are beautiful and stunning to look at. And honestly, to some degree, I think a lot of people post with this intention a little bit in the back of their minds, the pictures that are going to make other people envious of their life too. So friends and family back home who are seeing these pictures, who are just seeing the highlight reels, they're not seeing the fact that I haven't been able to put my laundry outside for 2 days and it's been on a drying rack in the other room taking up all of this space. They don't see the fact that I'm now learning to actually teach somebody how to do my job, even though I've only been doing it for 6 months because we had a new girl start on our team. There's all these small little average, everyday Aussie lifestyle bits and pieces that they don't see because that's not the stuff that's being posted on social media. Now, this one is just frustrating to hear time and time and time again because it is full of empty promises. And that is great. We can't wait to come and visit you over there. Or awesome. Now we have a place we can stay when we go over to visit Australia. Honestly, I've been here for 9 months. The number of people who've planned to come over here to see me are 0. The number of people who've said that they're going to come and visit me, more than I can count on 2 hands to show you guys. And to be honest, I expected that. I expected a lot of people to say, "Oh great, I can't wait to come over to Australia. I can't wait to visit. It'll be so nice going over there. You can show me around." And absolutely nobody has planned any trip to Australia. And when I first moved over here, the borders were still shut. But a few months later, they opened up to tourists, and it's summer over in America. A lot of people are going through their summer holidays, and absolutely nobody has said anything about planning a trip over to Australia. And to be honest, I expected that. I wasn't expecting that because I dropped my life over in the States and moved over here, that people would have to then come over to Australia just to see me, especially in the day and age where we have things like Zoom and video calls. But it was really, really frustrating, especially right before I moved over here, having so many people say that they would come and visit, that they'll be able to come crash on my couch for a little bit, that they can't wait to see what it's like over here, that they can't wait to visit. And I kind of knew in the back of my head that chances are I really wasn't going to see anybody, at least over here in Australia. If I want to see them, we're going to have to go back over to the States for a little bit on holiday, make plans to see them, carve out time to see them. I know that that is what it's like for a lot of people who move abroad. You can't expect your friends and family to uproot parts of their life to come over and visit you, especially if you're an American and your friends and family get very limited vacation time. I remember when I left, I had 3 weeks of vacation time banked up, and luckily with the company I was at, I was actually paid for those 3 weeks. So I had spent the entire year saving up my vacation time in the hopes that I would be able to move over to Australia in 2021. Luckily I did, and I was paid out for that 3 weeks of vacation time. But when I first started with the company, I only had 2 weeks of vacation time, which is still pretty generous for some American employers. And with how much time it takes to travel back and forth between the States and Australia, you lose basically 2 entire travel days just flying back and forth. So a 1-week trip to Australia really isn't going to be feasible for most people over in the States. So obviously I kind of expected that if I'm going to actually see people, I'm going to have to carve out time to go and see them over in the States. They're not actually going to visit me over here in Australia, even though they said they would. This one is very, very frustrating to hear, particularly from some family members back home, and that is, when are you coming home? I'm home. I'm in Australia. No, I don't have citizenship yet. I don't have even permanent residency yet. My visa is technically set to expire at the end of this year, the one that I'm currently on. So technically, even though I'm not home, I feel like I'm home over here. My life is set up over here. I have a great job over here. Obviously, I have an amazing partner over here, and yes, if something were to change, we would probably consider him moving over to the States if for whatever reason I couldn't stay in Australia. But I have a life set up over here. It feels like I'm home over here. It doesn't feel like I'm just over here for work for a little while, or over here to sort of test out this relationship and see where it goes, or just to kind of do something new and exciting for a few years of my life. It does feel like I'm home here now. And even though my support system over here isn't as strong as it was in the States, I don't have family over here. Mark's family's over here, and they're wonderful people, and I know that if we needed to, we could lean on them for support. I have a couple of friends over here, but not nearly as many as I had over in the States. There's so much more support system in the States, but I feel like I'm home here in Australia now. I've started to build a life here. Mark and I have built a life together here. Mark's had a life here for 38 years. So we're kind of integrating our own lives, and it also means that I'm starting to build something new over here. So I'm not going home anytime soon. And if I do, it's going to be for a few weeks on holiday. It's not like I'm going to pack everything up and move back to the States. At least not voluntarily and not willingly. Obviously, when you're an immigrant over here, the government has quite a strong say on whether or not you can or can't stay. So not everything is going to be within my control at the end. But overall, we have no plans for me to move back to the States. We have no plans for the two of us to go back to the States together other than on holiday. We're hoping to do a nice little 3-week getaway probably around this time next year, like about 11-ish months from now. So Mark can finally meet all of my family and friends. But if we're going over, we're just going over on holiday. I'm not going home. I'm already home. This last one, obviously I hear this from Americans, and that is, can you send me some Aussie food, Aussie snacks, Aussie souvenirs? I mean, I can, but shipping's expensive. and the stuff that you want me to buy can be a little bit expensive. And if you're not willing to fork up the money beforehand in order for me to buy everything and then put it in a box and Uber over to the post office and ship it for you, you're not getting Aussie snacks. You're not getting Aussie food. I've had a couple of people ask me if I could send them things, and obviously there's some people I'm more than happy to send things to. There are some people who I have a list of who I want to send what to as a thank you. I know I've been here 9 months, I just haven't quite gotten around to it, and I'm sorry about that part. But overall, there's a couple people who I would send things to without asking them for money back, without asking them for the shipping. But people will just ask me, can you send me some Australian candy? Can you send me some Australian food? Can you send me some Australian like t-shirts and whatnot? I would like to, but at the end of the day, these things do get very pricey. They do add up quite a bit. Obviously, shipping from Australia to America is not cheap. You're literally sending something halfway around the world. If you want me to send you something, I'm more than happy to, but you're going to have to pay for the cost up front in order for me to do that. And when I tell people how much the shipping is, 10 out of 10 times they back out and say, no thanks, it's not worth it. Especially because if they want something soon, there's a delay in shipping. Shipping doesn't happen overnight when you're traveling a box halfway around the world. It's going to take a few weeks. It does have to go through things like customs, so it is not an immediate order something on Amazon for Amazon Prime prices deal. I'm happy to ship friends and family food and snacks and whatnot, but it is very, very expensive. If I had sent food and whatnot to people who've asked me, I would be out probably about $2,000 if I just did it out of my own pocket right now. So I'm happy to send Aussie snacks and Aussie food to friends and family to try, but they also have to realize that they're going to have to fork over the entire cost. Shipping isn't like a little $15 fee that I'll just swallow and deal with. We're talking about $100 for a lot of these items to be shipped. So that's it for this list, you guys. 8 things I am so tired of hearing as an American living in Australia. Was anything on this list surprising to you guys? Have you heard anything like this before? Have you lived abroad and heard anybody ask you these kinds of questions? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like and subscribe button down below to join our little Amer-Australian family. I post on Mondays and normally Thursdays about the differences between American and Australian culture and the overall process of learning to live down under. My name's Kaitlyn, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!